This is an encore presentation of Faith and Sport on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network. Tune in to hear a brand new edition of Faith and Sport Monday afternoons from 5 to 6 on Carolina Catholic Radio Charlotte, 1270 AM. Also streaming at carolinacatholicradio.org and on the Carolina Catholic Radio app.
Hey everybody, welcome to Faith and Sport. However, wherever, whenever you are listening, I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I teach exercise science at Wingate University, just east of here, where we do this show here on North Tryon. But you're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. Thank you for joining us today. Here's what we're going to do today. We have a special in-studio guest. He is Jason Murphy. He's coordinator of the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. He's going to join us in just a minute. We're going to do a hit and miss. Jason and I, we're going to also talk about other stuff going on in the world of sport, and we're going to weave our faith into there every chance we can get. We're going to do sports headlines. We're going to have more discussion with our guest, Jason Murphy, and then at the end, we're going to do the quick Q&A with Dr. A. In fact, I have a feeling everybody out there hasn't really slept all that well, because they're like, we need a new quick Q&A with Dr. A, or we need a new hit or miss. Brant Hart sitting in Chris's position as the producer. Brant, thank you very much for joining us today. Folks, listen, one of the things that I want you to consider is we're going to bring Jason Murphy on here in a minute, but you're either a man or a woman. And if you are a woman, you know a man. And if you're a man, you are a man, and you know a man that should be at this week's Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. It's going to be held at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church. It's going to start early in the morning on Saturday. You need to be there. And again, if you're a woman out there, you must know a man that should be at this conference. But we're going to talk more about this with Jason. In fact, let's bring the man on right now. Jason Murphy, welcome to the show.
Dr. John, glad to be with you today.
Brother, we were sitting opposite seats just a couple weeks ago because I was on The Obligation. That's your show. Let's start with that. So if these folks recognize your name, if they recognize your voice through these Carolina Catholic Radio airwaves or Carolina Catholic Media airwaves, it's because of The Obligation. Tell us about The Obligation. What is that?
So The Obligation, sort of a fruit of the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. I was approached by David Papandrea a couple years ago. I was not familiar with Carolina Catholic Radio at the time, and he wanted to do some cross-promotion, marketing, kind of talk about the conference and, advertise the conference. And through that, I started doing a few little recordings here and there, little reflections. Come on, guys, get your tickets and get on, that type of thing.
Sure.
And, eventually I got a little more comfortable, started extending to some reflections, and after one of the last conferences, David asked me, he said, hey, what do you think about doing a men's forum show? And, of course, I was scared to death. Never been on radio.
Sure.
Still learning my way, but I said, sure, I'd be glad to take a look at that. And at the time, we had a speaker, a friend of mine, John Eads.
Yep.
He is a business life coach. He's done a lot of talks. He talks to different corporations and companies, kind of life, coaching and business development and encouraging their guys to, work as teams. And so I thought, well, if you put all these things together with teamwork and fellowship and all these parts that would make a good business, you bring that to the world of familial life and men's life and what we should be doing as men. I thought, well, he'd be great. So I reached out to John. Thought, well, he would make it a little easier for me since he has a lot of followers on LinkedIn and YouTube and all these social media platforms. He agreed. So we started The Obligation, and we ran for about 8 months. And things change as they do. John kind of went a different way, and I decided to kind of keep digging in and. Kind of stuck with the Obligation, but it's a weekly roundtable discussion of men, just discussing faith and morals as they relate to being a man, a father, or a husband, and talking about things that are, maybe don't get brought up in our normal conversations. We go out, Doctor, and we play golf, and we go out to work out with our friends, and in that capacity, we don't really get into anything much deep. And so I think we miss a lot of those conversations. So this, the Obligation show is kind of about that. It's about bringing guys together to kind of ask those questions, address those issues that maybe we need to hear or haven't heard. So we're Fridays at 5 on Carolina Catholic Radio. And we were pushing into about a year and a half, 67 issues, or 67 episodes.
Awesome.
And going to keep going as long as we can.
Guess that'd be great for me to count how many we've done with Faith in Sport. But yeah, we've been on these airwaves for a few years. And of course, I was on with Radio Maria. And then a lot of that time we were on both Radio Maria and here. But yeah, no, I appreciate what you do for the station. I especially appreciate you organizing that men's conference. We're going to get more into that. But let's get into Faith in Sport. We'll circle back around to more conversation with you personally and professionally. What we do here, folks, if you're joining us for the first time, you haven't heard this show in a while, what we do is we take a story that's in the world of sport that it has to do with character, ethics, or morality, and we just make it a talking point for a couple minutes. Normally, whoever my guest is, Ed Billick or Carlos Herrera, who joins me for the first half hour, at least in both cases. But today it's you. You know the gig with the hit or miss.
Yep.
As always, I allow the guest to go first.
Oh, okay.
What is your hit or miss in the world of sport and faith?
So I've got a hit, and it's gonna hit right there in the headlines of everything going on with Russia and Ukraine, which is really in the forefront. But my hit is gonna be Vladimir Klitschko and his brother Vitaly Klitschko, world boxing champs.
That's right.
For several years. Vitaly is the mayor of Kyiv in Ukraine, and basically they've taken up arms to defend their city and their country. And these guys are worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars.
That's right.
And they've pretty much put that aside to defend their homeland. And I think it's a great example for us all in pride, taking pride in our country, and the freedoms that our country allow, and being able to look what's more important. Look that country gave them the ability to be as successful and to give back. So I think that's my big hit. Those guys are strong. Vladimir says, one of his quotes here, "I just want to tell you, we must stand united against this aggression, against Russian aggression. Don't let it continue happening in the Ukraine. Don't let it happen in Europe, and eventually the world. United, we're strong. Support Ukraine." So
love it.
Thought that was pretty amazing.
I agree with that. That is a big hit. I saw the interview, at least part of the interview with Vladimir Klitschko, and the look in his eyes was pure sincerity. There was a certain amount of passion in his voice, certain amount of passion in his face. Certainly there was worry, there was trepidation, he probably felt, he was probably scared, right, when he's talking about this, but he said, I'm going to defend at all costs, and God bless those guys. And the reason that is so powerful is it's not only making a statement to Ukrainians, right? He's making a statement to the world that we have some fight in us, and either way, we're not going to go down. We're not going to go down easy, but it really states we have something to fight for here. And I thought that was a great story. That's a great hit, brother.
Yeah.
Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. We're joined here by Jason Murphy. He is the Catholic men's coordinator of the Conference of the Carolinas. I'm not sure I said that right. There's so many C's in there.
It's all there, Doc. You got it.
He is also the host of The Obligation. Thank you for joining us today, brother. This is fantastic. And folks, thank you out there in Carolina Catholic Radio land for joining us here for Faith in Sport. The good thing about this show is I opened up with the statement, thank you for joining us wherever, whenever, and however you are listening to us. And that's one of the neat things, Jason, about our shows is that we can be tapped into a lot of different ways, right? They can tap into the podcast via the website. They can listen live they can stream it.
Streaming, yeah.
Yeah, and then now we're back on the airwaves,
Absolutely.
right? So they can turn to 1270 AM and hear our voices booming across those AM radio waves. So this is fantastic.
Yep.
So listen, before we go into our first break, I'd like to mention my hit or miss. And interestingly, mine is a hit on a miss. In other words, mine is my hit is the poor TV ratings for the Olympics. And I have to admit,
I like it.
You're laughing, but I think you know why, right? Because it is frustrating to an absolute atrocity that the International Olympic Committee, as we were talking on your show, The Obligation, just a couple weeks ago when you had me as a guest, I am so frustrated by this. People get upset Like, for instance, what was the guy's name? What's the guy's name who owns Chick-fil-A? Kathy is his last name.
Yep.
And he mentions on a radio interview that he thinks marriage is between a man and a woman. And there's millions of people across the country within a couple days that are boycotting Chick-fil-A. And then when the biggest abusers of human rights, China, right next to places like Iraq, Iran, and North Korea, get not only the Winter Olympics this past winter, right? Just that ended just, 10, 12 days ago, something like that. They had the Summer Olympics just 15 years ago. And so it is so deserved that NBC chose to still air those Olympics. And one of the things I want to say to them is, what did they think was going to happen?
Yeah.
In other words, you may have heard these numbers. 40% less viewership. In other words, the average audience was something like 11 million with this past Olympics. Normally, it's around 19 million. So it's almost cut in half, right? Those are drastic numbers.
Right.
And the fact is, that is justice, right? That is that whole thing coming back at them, right? In fact, for NBC to give those sponsors their money's worth, because they paid big bucks for that sponsorship, right? Because that's how it works, folks. Here's the way it works. The International Olympic Committee grants the host city the right to sponsor it. They charge a lot of money, right, to have people come in and so forth. But to air it on places like NBC, they have to pay a lot of money to the people that host it. And so they get their money back by getting sponsors. And so what they had to do to kind of make up for it, because they knew the viewership was down, they had to run their ads more than 2 and 3 times the rate that they normally would to try to give them their money's worth.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Anyway, so that is the hit of the week. I like yours. We both had hits. This is great. But some people might be going, what? Because somebody did really poorly in TV ratings? But there's some things that are justified and some things that kind of need to happen before people maybe do something like this again.
Well, I mean, back to the Chick-fil-A situation, whenever all that, they came down and thought they were boycott the Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A had never been as strong as they are now, and people, showed their supports. You see the voice of the people,
right.
And, the media or whatever will try to present it one way, but the voice of the people be heard, and the voice of people were heard with these ratings,
I love it. Man, that made me happy. Folks, you're listening to Faith and Sport here on Carolina Catholic Radio, newly termed Carolina Catholic Media, but because I'm sitting in front of a radio microphone and you're probably listening on the radio, I'm probably going to continue to call it Carolina Catholic Radio, at least part of the time.
That's right.
Folks, here's what we're going to do. We're going to come back right from a break. Just take a quick break here with Jason Murphy. Remember, keep in mind that this Saturday, the date is March 5th. There is the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. In fact, this is the 12th annual.
It is.
And before we go, how many times have you been a part of this conference as the
coordinator?
Yeah.
This will be my 3rd year back at it since I came back, but I was also a part of its founding back in 2010.
No kidding.
And was there for the first 3 or 4 until kids started to come in and life got a little busier. But I'm
awesome.
back.
Thank you for coming back, brother.
Yes, sir.
All right, with that, we'll take a break. Join us here back in a couple of minutes here on Faith and Sport.
This is Jason Murphy for the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas and the Obligation Radio Show here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. 12th Annual Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas is coming up on March 5th, 2022 at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church in North Charlotte near UNCC. You will not want to miss this incredible lineup. The day includes prominent Catholic speakers throughout the day, including Catholic Answer's own Tim Staples. Tim is an apologist and convert with an incredible message for today's man. Also on board is Dr. Ray Garundi. Dr. Ray is the father of 9 children and a clinical psychologist for over 40 years. He is the host of the radio show The Doctor Is In and the TV show featured on EWTN Living Right with Dr. Ray. We will also be welcoming Keith Nestor, who was an evangelical minister for over 20 years, who converted to Catholicism, is now an author, speaker, and leader of the Rosary Crew, whose apostolate is to pray the Rosary daily with folks around the world. Last up, but certainly not least, is Carolina Catholic Media's own Dr. John Acquaviva. who hosts Faith and Sport and is also a health and fitness professor at Wingate University. Join Bishop Jugas along with the priests and seminarians of the Diocese of Charlotte to celebrate the holy sacrifice of the Mass, Rosary, and Adoration. Confessions will be held all day and lunch will be provided. Make sure to mark your calendar now for this day of faith, fellowship, and prayer. Tickets are on sale now at www.catholicmenofthecarolinas.org. Make sure to use that promo code RADIO and save yourself $5. I look forward to seeing you all there. This has been Jason Murphy. God bless and Esto Vir.
Hey, folks, welcome back to Faith and Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I'm an exercise physiologist. I teach exercise science. I teach people anatomy and physiology, sports nutrition, exercise physiology, how the body responds to exercise and all kinds of forms of sport at Wingate University. But I've been with Carolina Catholic Radio now for a couple years. I've been off the air doing live shows for a couple months now, but I'm back. And let me tell you what this show's about. We call it Faith and Sport, and what we do, it's a regular sports show. In fact, if you like sports, this is the show for you. And if you like your faith, doubly this is the show for you, because that's why I'm doing this show. So in other words, we take stories that are in the world of sport, in any sport, and if there's something that ties it to character, morality, or ethics, we like to talk about it here on this show. So thank you for joining us today here on Faith and Sport. Our in-studio guest is Jason Murphy. We had a talk with him in the first segment. He is the coordinator of the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. That's coming up this Saturday, March 5th. Please join us for that. We're going to talk about this more in a couple minutes with Jason. We're going to do sports headlines in a few minutes. We got the quick Q&A at the end of the show. We're going to do it all today. And again, thank you for joining us here on Carolina Catholic Radio. One of the things I want to mention to you folks is this is fully and 100% listener supported. Please go to the website and consider making some type of financial donation to help keep us on the air. It is no joke and it's no exaggeration that we are fully supported by our listeners. And most of our listeners, thankfully not all of our listeners, are Catholic. We want to bring people into the faith and want to bring people into the conversation on why we are Catholic. So we want to keep those people coming. So thank you for anybody, Catholic or not, that's joining us here on Faith and Sport today and listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. Jason Murphy, let's get back into our conversation. Who can we expect to hear from at the conference this Saturday?
We got a great lineup. I think one of the best lineups since our founding. We have it just solid from top down. Of course, our own Bishop Jugas, he'll be there, and he'll be celebrating Mass for us, along with the seminarians and priests through the diocese.
Yep.
But as far as our keynote speakers, we've got Tim Staples of Catholic Answers. Tim is an apologist and just an amazing speaker, author. He was a convert. He converted early in life. He met a Marine who was Catholic and inspired him, and he wanted to argue, the faith, and he went to Jimmy Swaggart Bible College in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which was a funny correlation there that we share because we were both in Baton Rouge at the same time.
Neat.
But he wanted to go basically to this Jimmy Swaggart Bible College to disprove Catholicism, and through his attempt at learning and studying, he actually became a convert, and one of the most solid converts we have.
Now, before we go to the next guest, you mentioned that he is part of his program or his online program, or what do you call it?
Catholic Answers?
Yeah, it's Catholic Answers. It's an online, what would you call it?
So it's an apologetics and Catholic resource. They do a lot of talks and presentations. A lot of authors are involved there. So they've got a radio show on EWTN, Catholic Answers Live. So just a ton of information there, and
it's where people either call in. I know he's on the radio, and then there are segments on Carolina Catholic Radio through EWTN affiliate.
Yes.
That where people call in or they write in, and they just simply have questions about the Catholic faith.
Correct.
Either something like, what is its foundation? Is it found in the Bible, or is it a tradition, or is it just plain the teaching of the church? What does the Catechism say about it?
Right.
Why do we do what we do as Catholics? It's kind of like what Tim Staples is all about.
That's right.
That's neat. In fact, do you know what he's going to talk on?
I'm not sure yet, so we're going to be surprised.
We're all going to find out.
We're going to find out
together.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So So there's definitely going to be some good people there. I was there last year as the MC. Thank you for including me in that. I really enjoyed that. And this is one of those things that's in life that you could easily sidestep, but if you don't, it enriches not just your faith life, it enriches your life. It's a great opportunity to be with, to spend time with other committed men to the faith, other faithful men. It's great to hear why people are Catholic. It kind of reinstates why we are what we are, right? Because I think a lot of times, especially for cradle Catholics, Jason, people tend to forget why we do what we do, right, and why we are who we are. And that's one of the reasons why something like this is so good.
It's an empowering day. I mean, guys are going to show up, and some are going to show up and they're going to be hesitant. They're not going to know what to expect. Some are going to be doing it out of obligation. Maybe someone guilted them into going, but I guarantee every single one of you, if you go with an open heart, open mind, you are going to get a tremendous out and much more than you could ever put into something like this.
Fantastic. Yeah. And people can sign up on the internet, correct? And where do they go for that?
So right now you can go online and buy tickets at www.catholicmenofthecarolinas.org. Tickets are still available now. We actually also offer virtual. So if there's people out of state, can't make it, not feeling well, whatever it may be, we do have a virtual option that will be available. They can pick up tickets at the door. If they're too busy, don't have time to get online, show up. We will get you in there, for sure.
Now, the problem with doing it online is you can't have that great lunch that we had last year, right? You're going to have lunch on your own, and that's not near as fun.
Yeah, so if you show up, I always order a few extra sandwiches. We got Panera Bread, who's done a great job every year helping us with the catering of that. But sure, if you show up, I'll give you my sandwich. If you show up and you're hungry, man, I'll give you my sandwich. I just need to get you in the door. So
hey, last year, was there an online presence as well?
Yes.
Do we know how many people were attending via?
Not a lot. Surprisingly, right in the midst of the pandemic, I think we only had around 10 registered for virtual, which I kind of thought would have been flip-flopped. I thought most people would have registered, but that was encouraging. Guys
Absolutely.
need to see it. They need to be there in person.
That's right.
It's just it's a different experience.
Where we go to Mass, our parishioners is Our Lady of Grace in Lancaster. Our pastor, one of the things that he said, it was just 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 at the most, he said, we're going to stop doing online or offering online Mass. He said, the pandemic is at its end, or is at least near its end. He said, we don't want to keep offering it. And the main reason was because he thinks people are just sitting on their couch and they're just using that as an excuse not to go anywhere.
I think so.
The sad thing about this is, I think you would agree, I think too many people, in fact, there might be tens of thousands of people that will never attend Mass again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was talking to someone on my way over here today just about the numbers, because 2020 we had about 500 guys, and that was following off of 2019 where we had about 200. So we were in a normal kind of environment, but we had just kind of lost some of the muster. So we picked things up. We amped up the advertising and the marketing and getting the word out. So in 2020 we were back up to 500. That was right on the beginning of the pandemic. And so when 2021 rolled around, we still were able to get 200 guys. Awesome. So I assumed that moving into 2022, we would have kind of been on that upward trend again. But as from now, it's looking like we'll be around that 200. But the conversation was that, so goes the Mass, so goes the men. And, if the guys, if they're not attending Mass, they're certainly not going to be showing up at this conference. And
sure.
So, we've lost a lot. We have lost a lot that may not return, and that's unfortunate.
Right. As I said, and that's one of the things we have to pray on, is those folks that have wandered away from the faith. We have to ask them to come back and ask God to steer them in their hearts to come back to the faith. Because if you want to see unhappy people, you show me somebody that is upset all the time, that is frustrated all the time, that is kind of grouchy all the time. I'll show you somebody that hasn't really connected with God, at least recently. And that's one of the things we have to do.
100%.
Brother, about your family life, you're married and you have a dozen or so kids. Tell us exactly how many.
Half a dozen, yep, half a dozen.
You guys should make a movie called Cheaper by the Half a Dozen.
Yeah, well, Catholic education actually is, because our 6 will be going for free. So,
there you go.
So the church certainly encourages pro-life in a real way. So,
Absolutely.
Starting, first kid goes, and I think he's full price, but second's a discount, third, fourth, and so on until the
6th one is free.
I believe it might be the fifth. The fifth.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So we're we're on that. It's that Thanksgiving sale. It's the more you spend, the more you save.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, that's right.
I can see that.
But yeah, happily married 17 years and 6 kids. So it's a wonderful life.
Now, brother, one of the reasons you're on this show is because you like sport, you are a fan of sport, and you've been involved in sport as a dad in particular most recently. Tell us the most recent experience as a coach or some type of experience that you've had with a son or a daughter in the world of youth sport.
So, yeah, I coached for about 10 years until the pandemic hit.
And what sport was this?
And that was soccer.
Got it.
And I coached 3 teams at once.
Wow.
Yes, so that was...
Of 3 different kids, right?
Of 3 different kids.
And what I would love to see, if it was 2 different soccer teams on the same, in the same park at the same time. That'd be great, seeing you run back
Absolutely.
and forth to coach. You really did that. And,
I
of
did.
course, after about the second week, you looked at your wife and said, honey, what have I done?
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I love it. I did it for, like I said, about 10 years. The pandemic hit, and so I was coaching through St. Patrick's, and the youth sports just haven't picked back up. Especially in the elementary level there.
Yeah.
However, it's been kind of nice the last season, kind of sitting back and being able to watch from the sideline.
Yeah.
I love coaching. I mean, I'm all in when it's coaching.
What about youth sport coaching gave you energy?
The kids just, channeling their energy, I think, because a lot of times the kids will show up, especially if they don't know who the coach is, and they're like, oh, this is just another after-school activity or another extension of school. Yeah. And we've been sitting in school for, 7 or 8 hours, like we're kind of done. So first day of practice is usually kind of wild. A lot of them will show up with candy and lots of sweets, and that's one thing I shut down immediately. If they want to, have that, it's going to be, after practice, because we're going to try and focus the kids. Because the big thing is kind of channeling all of that, and really the first step, I think, is really in the land, discipline.
Sure.
Kind of like, okay, we want to have fun. I don't, and it depends on the age. If I'm coaching, 4-year-olds, that's a different story. But if I'm coaching a 14-year-old, that's a different game. So starting with discipline. But I know we're coming up on a break, so I don't want to keep rolling. We can pick that up.
Yeah, we can. Folks, you're listening to Carolina Catholic Radio. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. You're listening to Faith in Sport. Our in-studio guest today is Jason Murphy. He is the host of The Obligation, also heard here on Carolina Catholic Radio, and he's the coordinator of the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. That's coming up this Saturday. Yep. So as I mentioned earlier, guys, think about it. Grab a buddy, grab your nephew, grab your son, grab somebody that is close to you, hook them by the shoulder, hook them by the elbow, and bring them on into the conference. You will appreciate the heck out of that. Listen, we're going to come back. We're going to take a break. But when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Jason Murphy, more here, and the discussion on faith in sport. So hang with us, everybody.
2022 is bringing many new and exciting changes to our Carolina Catholic Apostolate, built to communicate how to better learn, love, and live our Catholic faith. We begin with our name change to Carolina Catholic Media. This reflects the expanded scope of Carolina Catholic Radio to include the development of our podcast, streaming, social media, YouTube, and direct marketing platforms. 2022 is a very important year for the Catholic Church. As a result, Carolina Catholic Media will feature more local news, information, and conversation to reflect what's happening now and how it impacts our local Catholic community. Throughout the year, Carolina Catholic Media will showcase our Catholic schools and homeschools, the Charlotte Diocese 50th anniversary, and the 2-year worldwide synod process that begins on the diocesan level. We encourage you to get involved, join us, and catch the spirit. The Carolina Catholic Media Apostolate is a 501c3 nonprofit. We are 100% funded by you. please consider a donation, monthly tithe, or business sponsorship to support our mission and vision to spread the truth of Jesus Christ and our Catholic faith across the Carolinas. Thank you for discerning a role in our apostolate. May God bless you abundantly.
Hello, Carolina Catholics. This is Dr. Gregory Popchak from EWTN's More to Life. Our faith is God's greatest gift to us and a priceless treasure. But faith doesn't spare us from the challenges of life. I know from over 20 years of practice that most families face one or more serious issues: addiction, anxiety, depression, marriage problems, divorce. If you're struggling with these or similar issues, there's hope. The Catholic counselors at my Pastoral Solutions Institute are here to help. Visit us today at CatholicCounselors.com or call 866-724-1196 and let your journey to healing begin. That's 866-724-1196 or visit us at CatholicCounselors.com. This is Dr. Greg Popchak with EWTN's More to Life here on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Faith and Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I am joined here by in-studio guest Jason Murphy. He is the host of The Obligation, also heard on the Carolina Catholic Radio Network, and he is the coordinator of the upcoming Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas to be held this Saturday, March 5th. Please join us for that. We're going to continue our conversation with Jason. Before we went to the break, we were talking with Jason about his experience in youth sport. And to ask you directly, what's the worst part about, you talked about some neat things about like the kids, the energy that they have that you have to channel into soccer and so forth. But what's something that is a regular occurrence or maybe even just happened once that was what you would consider a negative experience?
The parents.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's my brutally honest answer.
And in what ways can parents give the folks that aren't involved in youth sport or haven't been involved in youth sport, or this will be a surprise to simply because they are going to be a little surprised that people overstep their bounds, right?
Yeah.
And is it overstepping their bounds as far as your coaching? In other words, decisions that you make about their kids' playing time, or about where they play and so forth. Talk about some specific instances without giving names or parishes.
Whew, all right. I'm going to have to be real careful here. No, just kidding. All of my parents of the kids that I've coached have always been super supportive. I'm always worried. Like, I'll ask my wife after, was I too hard on him? Was I screaming too much? They're like, no, we could barely hear you. Because I'm really into it from beginning to end, no matter the level. I encourage them and just constantly screaming at them and in a positive way. Sure. But I also I'm aware of that for myself. So I would say no, not necessarily from my kids. And most of the time, I would say the parents on the sideline during our games are very sportsmanlike. We've never had that really issue, but we've played at many different levels where the other teams have just been. You and I are both very competitive, right? So we play to win, and that there's no doubt about it. No matter the game, no matter the level, we want to win, and that's understandable. But when the parents' level of enthusiasm is even beyond the kids in a certain sense, there may be an issue. There may be a problem. So just some of the screaming, we've talked, you mentioned before the referee, making less money than his age, out there, getting screamed at and just destroyed by some of the parents. Some of the celebration tactics that have been used, the chants, there used to be a chant back in the day. I remember you'd hear about, oh gosh, we appreciate you. One of these chants at the end.
Is it by the parents or by the
team? Okay. I can't remember. It might come to me, but I remember like growing up, you'd hear this chant. It was a chant of appreciation for the other team.
Got it.
And now though, there's a lot of these like just celebratory, way too much. And I guess
look what we did type celebrations and songs. And
we're the mighty victors, and this, that, and the other. Yeah. But it brings back to mind like one of the women's national teams. It may be the United States playing China or Korea a couple years ago in soccer, and they were winning like 9-0, and they're sliding across the field and ripping their shirts off, and it's at that point, that's not sportsmanlike to me.
Right.
I just think maybe the first couple of goals, once you've solidified the win and the other team obviously cannot compete, that type of thing for me, I'm not a fan of. So I would say there's similar things from the parents in that respect where they're just kind of over the top. Like it's, whenever you're dealing with young kids, 3, 4, 5, and 6 that are just getting their head around the game, and majority of the ones that, that I would have coached are not your club player teams.
Yeah, of course.
And some of these teams, they may stack them, and they may be all club teams. This might be like an in-between club kind of rec league for them to pick up. And when there's clear vision that there's no competition, it's you need to just kind of reflect that, and obviously the parents are going to probably feel it more than the kids, but for the kids' sake, the kids don't want to go home feeling like losers. And I'm not all about participation trophies. I hate them. I hate participation trophies. So I'm not saying everybody should win, but in a sense, at that age, everyone should feel like they've gone and done something maybe positive at least, and not just go home feeling, defeated. That's not the point. That's not the point at that age.
Sure. Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. I'm being joined in studio by Jason Murphy. He is an entrepreneur. He is the coordinator of the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. He's the host of The Obligation that can be heard right here on Carolina Catholic Radio, and his experience as a Little League soccer coach. What is something, Jason, that you did in your second year that you didn't do in your first year that you wish you would have to make the experience better for everybody?
That's a good question. Let's see.
I can sing a song. I could do a song, and I could do a tap dance over here. Yeah, I could do something over here while you think of that response. But I didn't prep you on that question.
No, that's okay. That's a good question. So I would thinking back, when I first was hired on, Doc, I'm just kidding. When I first decided to do it, of course, you feel a little pressure. Like everybody looks at the coach, so you want to make sure that you perform. And I think I probably, to my own point, I took it probably a little too serious.
Got it.
And I think I kind of missed out on some of those, those moments.
You just toned it down a notch.
I think I toned it down.
You enjoyed it more.
I think I just made it a little more fun.
Got it.
And it was still fun. It was great. Of course, watching your child play is always a wonderful thing, and being able to coach is even more so.
Yeah.
But I think I would say second year, probably toning it down, and really just kind of appreciating it, stepping back and just taking that visual and enjoying what we're doing, and it's not all about the win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you have to go for the win, otherwise the competition itself is compromised, right? And anything we do, in fact, we were talking on your show about this just a couple weeks ago. If you and I are playing chess or checkers, I need to try to win if you want to enjoy that competition, if you want to enjoy that game. If the other individual compromises effort in any way, then it takes away from the whole thing about competition, right? But it needs to be played within certain rules, within certain ethics, and so forth. And here's the thing. You and I both know this. As a former player, as a former referee, as a parent of a couple athletes right now, you have athletes in your family, and you might very well get back into coaching sometime soon, that we're all still trying to get it right? We're trying to get it right in our daily lives through our work and so forth, and that's one of the things that we try to get right. And we are making strides, even if it's in small ways, improvements from one season to the next. So that's good for you, brother. Listen, folks, one of the things that I mentioned early in the show was that we were going to do sports headlines, and I'm going to take a little different turn on this because of what's going on in the world. So let's do that right now. We'll talk about sports headlines. But we're going to really just go in one direction, and Jason and I are going to have a little conversation here before we come up to our next break. The big news in sports, of course, is that Russia has invaded Ukraine, and the sports world has spoken. Wayne Gretzky, former hockey great, says Russia should be banned from the World Juniors. And what he's referring to there is the World Junior Championships, in which Canada is strong, United States is strong, but Russia is strong. They produce really good professional players and amateur players as well. But further, and another former hockey player, Dominik Hasek, says Russian NHL player contracts should be suspended. Now, let's come back to that. Now, further, Poland and Sweden have refused to play Russia in the Soccer World Cup qualifiers that are coming up. But the interesting thing is that not all are saying that Russia is doing something wrong or bad. And I found this really interesting. The International Volleyball Federation announced that the World Championship that was to be played later this year in August and September should still go on because, quote, the sport always wants to remain separate of politics. And I find that somewhat, not just somewhat, I want to remove the word somewhat. I find that disingenuous because all these other people, all these other organizations are speaking, and for somehow, some way, the Volleyball Federation sees themselves above all this and says, we are not going to infringe on anybody's politics, but in particular, this war that's going on, Russia invading Ukraine. Where are you with Wayne Gretzky and these World Cup qualifiers, and in particular, on the other side of the fence, or an extension of that fence, I should say, is Dominik Hasek saying the Russian NHL players' contract should be suspended. I think that goes a little too far. In our pre-show conversation, it seems that you were in agreement with that.
Yeah, that's definitely overreach. I don't understand if you have someone living here, whether they're a foreign national or just from their background, have Russian ties. That seems a little crazy to me.
Yeah, and it makes sense though that people are saying, listen, we're going to refuse to play Russia either in Russia or against Russia in any type of qualifiers in hockey and soccer. That makes sense.
Absolutely. It's effective war. We've got a war going on, and that is the priority. And unfortunately, war is hell. And, there's going to be effects of that. And so if, these players and these teams aren't able to compete because of what their leader has chosen to do, well, they're going to have to look to their leader for that decision. Absolutely.
And so listen to this. This is something that the International Olympic Committee decided to do. And it sounds like FIFA, the World Organization for Soccer, is going to do something along the same lines. And this doesn't make sense to me. And I mean this. This isn't any form of false cluelessness on my part. But why would FIFA say the following? Russia cannot compete as Russia, but they can compete as something like the Football Union of Russia or the FRU rather than Russia. Is there something behind this that I'm not seeing? In other words, it's kind of like saying, hey, we're going to have our own Catholic Men's Conference this year, but we're going to call it, rather than the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas, we're going to call it the Catholic Men's Carolina Conference, right? Now, we could do something like that. It's going to be separate from what you guys are doing. But I mean this, Jason. Am I missing something in them changing the name from Russia to the Football Union of Russia?
It's a farce, man. I don't know what that is. You want to talk about not being political in sports? I don't know anything that's more political than playing that game. I don't get that. That's a little confusing to me.
Yeah.
There's got to be just lots of money involved there, and worried about political ramifications and things like that. But that's a farce. Yeah, I don't get that.
I think it's got to be two things, right? And one is far less than the other. I think the one has to do somehow deal with it financially. If they pull them out, this is money that's not coming into the union, that's not coming into this organization. But the other one must be it's going to make more work for them because they all play in these little blocks, right? They all play in all these schedules are set up. Russia's all part of that. And if you pull them out, it's just like a little league season where you're like, hey, Team B is no longer in there. And you have to say, oh my gosh, we have to recreate everything now. And so they don't want to do any of the quote paperwork on it.
Well, yeah.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah, but Poland's not going to play them, whether they're in there or not. Poland's not going to play. It looks like England, Scotland, Wales, Republic of Ireland, or other countries that are saying, they don't want to
They've all announced formally that they're not going to play them.
Yeah, I mean they're. So I don't know. I don't know what that's about. There's definitely some more to that story.
Well, brother, I hear you. There's always more to talk about that. In fact, we have one more segment coming up. Listen, stay tuned. We got more Faith and Sport coming up. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Thank you for joining us today on Carolina Catholic Radio. We'll be right back.
Teachers that care professors that care about you. Just an awesome experience all around.
There's peace here. There's encouragement here.
Faculty, everybody that works here, they really set you up for success.
I don't think I have ever felt as loved and as supported and as encouraged as I have at the Abbey.
There's something here that's underlying and intrinsic. There's like a spirit of love and community. And I think the spirit is God's presence here.
Belmont Abbey College, a world away, but close to home. Visit us at belmontabbeycollege.edu.
This is Jason Murphy for the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas and the Obligation Radio Show here on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. 12th Annual Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas is coming up on March 5th, 2022 at St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church in North Charlotte near UNCC. You will not want to miss this incredible lineup. The day includes prominent Catholic speakers throughout the day, including Catholic Answer Zone Tim Staples. Tim is an apologist and convert with an incredible message for today's man. Also on board is Dr. Ray Garundi. Dr. Ray is the father of 9 children and a clinical psychologist for over 40 years. He is the host of the radio show The Doctor Is In and the TV show featured on EWTN Living Right with Dr. Ray. We'll also be welcoming Keith Nestor, who was an evangelical minister for over 20 years, who converted to Catholicism, is now an author, speaker, and leader of the Rosary Crew, whose apostolate is to pray the Rosary daily with folks around the world. Last up, but certainly not least, is Carolina Catholic Media's own Dr. John Acquaviva, who hosts Faith and Sport and is also a health and fitness professor at Wingate University. Join Bishop Jugas along with the priests and seminarians of the Diocese of Charlotte to celebrate the holy sacrifice of the Mass, Rosary, and Adoration. Confessions will be held all day and lunch will be provided. Make sure to mark your calendar now for this day of faith, fellowship, and prayer. Tickets are on sale now at www.catholicmenofthecarolinas.org. Make sure to use that promo code RADIO and save yourself $5. I look forward to seeing you all there. This has been Jason Murphy. God bless and Esto Vir.
Hey folks, welcome back to Faith and Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. We have a special show today. We are being joined in studio by special guest Jason Murphy. Jason is the coordinator of the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. He has experience in Little League coaching, primarily soccer. He's the host of the Obligation Radio Show right here on CCR. He's an all-around good guy, and he has taken time out of his day to join us here on North Tryon here in the studios of Carolina Catholic Radio. Brother, I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but this has been on my mind for a good 48 hours. You and I were talking before the show went on about a similar experience that we've had with going to pray at abortion clinics.
Yeah.
And I know this is going to take a turn for the serious, but this has left an imprint on my brain and my heart. So I've done this before, including with my family. We've gone to a couple different abortion clinics, but we went to the one on Latrobe the other day. And our parish, led by Father Kirby at Our Lady of Grace, there was, and this is pretty impressive because remember, all those people a lot of them come from South Carolina, and this is the opposite end. It's a good 45-minute drive for a lot of those folks. We pull up, and they had just started praying, and there was probably around 125 Catholics there. But there was other groups that came, right? And they have their own form of prayer. One guy had a loudspeaker, and he's just talking about the love of God and Jesus' life and what it means to them. And they're just a little ways away in this park. There's other groups not praying the rosary with us. They're obviously a different denomination, but everybody's friendly with one another, and we all know that we are not only for the same cause, and a very important cause, and maybe the most important one in our culture, right? But what we experience, we were directly across from the main entrance to the abortion clinic, Jason. And there's 4 or 5 people that have signs that say clinic entrance. And so they wave it whenever a car comes down, whether they know that they're actually coming into the clinic or not. They wave these flags, and they have umbrellas that they twirl so everybody can spot it. That's all fine, right? But it's the language that they use, the anger, the vulgar language, the vulgar words, the obscene gestures that they use, and then the disgraceful things that they say about themselves and toward the people that are there praying completely peacefully. And they went on and on the entire hour and 15 minutes that we were praying. And it said several things, but this is the main thing it said, is here they are trying to be warm and welcoming to people who are having an abortion. And for the people that are simply praying peacefully to have people change their heart and their minds, there is a real disconnect there. And the language they use toward us just simply because we're praying for those people. In other words, would the world be a better place if those people didn't have an abortion? And my feeling is they feel that the world is better if they do it, because it's more of my side has won. It becomes like a competition, like we were talking about.
Right.
And it's like a win-loss thing. And you and I both know that too many of us, you and I are probably guilty of this. I know I was, especially as a young athlete. We associate being a winner to winning and being a loser to losing, right? And that's the wrong place to be in sport. But I think we do that in all aspects of our lives. And if these people have one person, for instance, that comes out of that clinic, says, I've changed my mind, I bet they feel like they've done something wrong.
Agreed. Yeah.
Have you ever experienced this at an abortion clinic?
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Haven't been a ton. I distinctly remember the very first time that I went, and it was actually during a time when my wife and I were having difficulty conceiving, and so I went with a friend of mine, and I remember standing out there, we're praying the rosary, it was very peaceful, and in the middle of the rosary I looked up and there was a couple of vultures, and they were just circling above the building. And I know they probably weren't there due to anything in the building, but there was enough symbolism there.
Wow.
It was a reflection, and just thinking of the death and the destruction going on in there, and just really having the heart to, really want to go up to someone and say, look, we can't conceive, we'll take your baby, and to know how bad we wanted a baby, and to see how quickly that they were ready to just destroy their own. So it made an impression on me. That's a great work being out there, but it's a true battleground. You want to step right into toe to toe with the devil, and there you are, because that's probably it's the greatest evil going on in our culture.
Guys, that's well said, brother, because I thought that same thing when we were walking toward our car. I said, you know what? You can experience the spiritual battle within yourself or within culture, but if you want to see it within a mass of people, all you have to do is go and pray in front of an abortion clinic with a lot of people, and you will see true spiritual warfare.
Absolutely.
When my wife, she took a walk, we have 5 children, as a lot of our listeners know. The youngest one is 10 months old, and he does not like to be still, right? So if he can't walk anywhere, he wants to be walked somewhere. So Alicia was walking with him, and one of these women that was at the top of the list of vulgarities and obscenities and so forth toward us. Now remember, we have children there. Our kids are between the ages of 10 months and 11 years old. There was dozens of kids there, right? Listening to the same vulgarly, these obscene gestures. What they were creating through the English language was unbelievable, that they didn't care that these children heard this. One of the women that was at the top of the list, she walked away to have a cigarette, and her and Alicia crossed paths about a half a block from the end of this chain of prayerful people, and she uttered an obscenity to Alicia, and further she extended it to our child. And I think Alicia will never forget that, unfortunately, but I think it's always going to leave a place on her in her mind that would happen. Like, wow, you're that mad where you want no happiness for me or my baby. It was really powerful.
Yeah, and you mentioned a good point too before we came on the air that what would they if your wife would have responded, well, I'm here to have an abortion as well.
That's right. She was shifting gears completely, probably like, oh, you're one of me, but why can't? Oh, it's amazing. I've never written about the subject of abortion and the church's stance on it and so forth, but I feel right now, if somebody were to offer me a chapter in a book, I feel like I could say all these things because it was such a powerful experience. But also, you just wonder what is going on there. But I think you said it, brother. I think the evil one is alive and well at those places, but so is God.
Yeah.
And this is true spiritual warfare. And if anybody has ever heard that term, but they don't quite know what that means, spiritual warfare, go to an abortion clinic and just witness like a referee. Don't be a part. You can stand in the middle of the street. It was unbelievable, the power between those two entities there.
Agreed.
Folks, you're listening to Faith in Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Thank you for joining us here on Carolina Catholic Radio. We only got a couple minutes left, but let's continue the conversation with Jason Murphy. Jason, in a minute, Brant's going to shoot a question at us that's going to kind of like end this whole discussion of faith in sport for the day. But I want you to encourage everybody, especially the men listening or the women that are listening, for a man in their life to come to this week's conference. So tell us a little bit about the conference and why should we come?
All right, so we mentioned Tim Staples and Bishop Jugas. We're also going to have Keith Nestor. Keith was 20 years in the evangelical ministry, and he converted. Huge convert story there. He has a beautiful mission. The Rosary Crew, he says the Rosary online through social media. Hundreds jump on with him every single day.
Love it.
So it's beautiful. Dr. Ray Garundi from EWTN, he will be there with us. Dr. Ray is a clinical psychologist. He's a father of 10 adopted children.
Amazing.
Definitely going to give us some great advice and encouragement as fathers and husbands. And, of course, our own here, Dr. John Acquaviva, will be speaking to us. And look forward to having you. And Ed Billick is going to be our MC this year.
That's right. And so Faith in Sport is going to be represented really well. And if you could remind me, brother, I'm on from like 9 to 9:35, something like that.
I think so. I think
we could talk. We'll talk
the schedule's online. Yeah, for sure.
The schedule's on. Acquaviva, just check it. Listen, let's end on a question because I think this is worthy discussion. And it really just fits right into easily our conversation about faith in sport. Brant, shoot a question at us about what's going on in the world of sport, and Jason and I will try to tackle it.
All right, here, Dr. A. Regarding the Juwan Howard incident, did the consequence fit the action?
Oh, this is a good one. And this is about 10 days old. University of Michigan basketball coach Juwan Howard, former Fab Five member. He was losing badly against the University of Wisconsin. About 15 seconds left. They were losing by about that same amount, 15 points. And the Wisconsin team, their second or third stringers, were trying to get the ball past half court so they don't have a 10-second violation. And the coach, because they couldn't get the ball past midcourt, they had like another second or two. He called timeout. This infuriated Juwan Howard because they're losing big. He's already frustrated the fact that they, Michigan at the beginning of the year was favored to win the Big Ten, and they're just having a bad year. And I know that was not only the frustration of the game, but the frustration of the whole season. Anyway, he barely says anything to the coach at the end, and the coach grabs his arm. And he says, we're going to talk about this. I'm going to give you reason why I called that timeout. And then an altercation started, and all the teams and all the coaches kind of came together, and Juwan Howard was seen in this still picture slapping one of the University of Wisconsin's assistant coaches in the face. But the look on Juwan Howard's face was he was very upset. He looked like an evil man when he was I mean that. If you see the picture. And University of Michigan responded by now I shouldn't say only, but I was going to use that word, but he responded by suspending him for the rest of the season, which was 5 games.
Okay.
What do you think? Is that justified? Should there?
I think it fits the crime.
You do?
Yeah. I was gonna say, if he was removed from coaching completely, that's
maybe a little strong.
Maybe a little strong, but they've got to set he has to set an example as the coach to the players, and of course, you can't have the players going and doing that, and that's just a trickle down effect, unfortunately. So I think the punishment fits the crime. It's unfortunate, but I think he'll learn from it, and hopefully they'll step it up next year and be on top.
I think so. And one of the things that I thought was, as we talked about before we even went on the air, was if it would have been, say, 10 games left in the year and they would have suspended him, I would have been okay with that.
Yeah.
I wasn't for firing him, but if they would have done it in this culture that we live in now, right, everybody's like,
no surprise.
Yeah, they just go for the jugular on so many things. You do something wrong, you deserve not a second chance, and you deserve to be hung by the longest yard arm and so forth. And in this case, I thought it was justified too. Whether it was 5 or 15 games, I think the lesson was learned.
Agreed.
I think as much as anything, and I mean this, I don't know Juwan Howard. He seems like a decent guy. I know he was a great NBA player, playing the NBA for 19 years, was a really good college player. He's turned out to be a pretty good college coach. I can't imagine. How would you not learn from something like this? Just because of this, Jason. Embarrassment.
Yeah, sure.
To have something like that was on national TV.
First thing I would have said to my players is, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I would have gone back there and said, guys, I'm sorry. I made a big mess up.
And you and I would both be shocked if he didn't do that.
Yeah.
Would you have been surprised if they would have fired him?
No, not today.
Yeah. Maybe even a couple years ago, yes. But not today, you would have said, yeah, that's like, in other words, even though I don't agree with it, that wouldn't have shocked you either.
Look at the greats, Bobby Knight, come on.
Yeah.
It took a while for him to actually, get out of there. So
I one time saw this cartoon, and it was obviously of Bobby Knight, but it didn't say anything. And all of his players, you remember why? One of the things he did was he picked up a chair and he threw it across
That's right.
Yeah, and all of his players were sitting on bean bags. Yeah,
there you go.
And of course somebody goes, "What's with the bean bags?" And they're like, "Well, even if he throws one," the caption said something like, "Well, even if he throws one, he won't hurt anybody."
That's great.
Because you remember the chair went skidding.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're one of the few people that would probably recall that.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Well, folks, we only got a couple minutes left. Thank you for joining us here on Faith in Sport. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Remember, this Saturday is the is the Catholic Men's Conference of the Carolinas. Please join us. Jason, what time does it start? What time should they get there in the morning?
We're kicking off at 8 o'clock.
Fantastic.
Yep.
And you can purchase the tickets online and reserve yourself a spot, or you can come to St. Thomas Aquinas Catholic Church, and you can just buy a ticket at the door and then come on in.
That's right. We'll get you in.
Very good. All right, folks, as we always do, let's end with a quote from Pope John Paul II, who said, "Give thanks to God for the gift of sport, in which the human person exercises his body, intellect, and will, recognizing these abilities as so many gifts of his Creator." Again, that's from Pope John Paul II. Before we go, I want to give a special thanks to you, Jason Murphy, and to producer Brand Hart for sitting in that producer seat. I'm Dr. John Acquaviva. Please join us next time here on Carolina Catholic Radio for Faith in Sport. Saint Sebastian, pray for us. Thank you for joining us, folks.